As you can see on screen, I've already got our basic code typed up, what we've been calling the skeleton. I do need to add a return statement, return 0, and for this tutorial, I kind of want to go into, we're going to start with output, because output is going to be a little bit, we've kind of already seen it in the Hello World program. So in the Hello World program, we saw something along the lines of this. And when we ran it, the screen printed Hello World before we saw our process return to 0. Okay, so for now, we're going to go ahead and take out this end-L right here, because I just want to focus on something a little bit easier, and that's just basic output, and then we'll go into basic input. So right now, we're just going to see this right here, Hello World, and when we run it, you'll see a little bit of a difference, but not much. The only difference is there's not as much space here. It just says Hello World, and then immediately process returns 0. And later we'll get into why that's so when we took out that last code, but for now, let's just leave it as is. So what is this? Well, this is an output stream, cout. That's where the out comes from, is output. So when you use cout, you're referring to output to the console, and that's what the C stands for, console output. And the console is the big black window that pops up when we run our program. So when we say console output, and then these two operators right here, and then we specify a string, and this is a string because there's double quotation marks. We specify hello world. The console will actually output the word hello world, and that's exactly what happens. Okay, so kind of just to show you, we can put integer. We could put an integer here if we want to. We could say output 9, and it'll output the number 9 on the console. Okay, so that's kind of basic output. But I kind of want to go into, I kind of want to throw in variables into this for a second. So in the previous tutorial we discussed, the variable letter. We'll call it the letter Z this time. Okay, so if we're wanting to declare a data type of one character, and we want that character to be the letter Z, we would do it as so. We'd specify char for character, and then we'll call it, we'll call it anything we want. We'll call it, we can call it letter Z equals, and then single quotation marks, Z semicolon. So here's our variable right here. Well, if we wanted to output this variable, we would just say cout operators, and then we would type the name of our variable, letter Z. And if we run this, we'll get what you expect. We get the single character Z, because what this is saying console output the variable letter Z, which we called letter Z, okay, output whatever this variable is holding, and it's holding this letter. And remember, just because we called it letter Z, let's call it something else. Let's call it let's just call it box. Okay, let's say we called this box. Okay, well, when we cout box, it's going to go to where we declared box at, which is right here, the variable box, and it's going to look what it's holding. Well, it's holding a character Z. So when we console output box, it outputs Z to the screen, and then process return to 0. Now let's back up for a second, because I didn't really explain this. What are these right here? Well, these are what I call them stream operators. They're basically they're just the output stream, and what it is anytime you say cout and you're wanting to output, you can't just say cout box. That will return an error right there. That's an error. So what you do is you use a output stream operator, which is just two less than signs. So you have to say cout two less than signs, not this, but it has to be two less than signs, and then box. And if we do, I kind of just want to show you, more for practice. And I really want you to do this on your own so you can see all the different possibilities. But if we do two of these lines of code right after the other, you're going to get just that. You're going to get two Z's one after the other. Okay? So I got two Z's because we wrote the statement twice. So that being said, let's try something here. So let's go into that right here. Endl, what is that? Well, that stands for end line, and this is used a lot with basic output because it gives you spacing. So if we do the output stream operator, which basically this is the same thing as saying cout box console output end line. This will work the same way. Z, and then you'll see there's a space here because we added a blank line. And if we do, so we could take this out, we could even add it right here. This is the same thing. If we just did that, we're using it all in one line of code. Basically, you're going to get the same exact result. So I kind of wanted to show you that there's many ways you can do this, and I really want you to play with this on your own because you're going to learn. You could say cout box endl box endl, and then when you run it, you get just that. You get Z, and then on the next line Z, and then a new line. But if you added another Z, you would get a Z right there. So it's kind of, you really just need to play with this output because you're going to get a lot of cool stuff. Let's move on below this. Let's leave that code there. Let's declare a new data type. Let's call it let's do a decimal value. So remember double, and we'll call it box2, the variable name, equals 89.47 semicolon. Oops. Semicolon. So there's our second variable. So let's add cout box2 endl. And let's run that. So what do you get? Well, you get your two Z's because you had box here. You ended the line. On the next line, you put another box and you ended the line. And then on the next line, you put box 2. Well, what's in box 2? 89.47. That's why you get 89.47. Then you ended the line, and then you returned 0. Process returns 0. So you can see if you play with this, you're going to learn. And I want you to do it. I want you to go through. I want you to use different data types. This right now, if we just did, let's try another data type just before we end this tutorial. Let's do a string, and we'll call a string address equals 1400 College Drive. That's an address, and we had to use string because it's alphanumeric data, right? If we wanted to use, we couldn't use an integer because it obviously has alpha characters in it too. So that's why we used string for the address variable. And if we wanted to output that, we could do cout. We'll give it some space. We'll do 2 new lines, and then we'll say output address, and then add another new line, end line. Let's output that. Let's see what that looks like. So we get our 2 Z's, our box2 variable, 89.47, and then if you look down here, we added 2 new lines. That's where the blank space comes in. And then we outputted the address. Oops. So then we outputted the address, 1400 College Drive, which we declared in this string variable right here. And that's where that comes from. And then process returned 0. So there you go. I want you to play with this. I want you to try doing it with character data, integer data, string data, and double decimal point data. I want you to practice outputting everything that we learned here. Maybe try outputting your name and writing a sentence. Like maybe try doing string name equals, and then put your name. So my name is Zach, and then try to output that. So be like, so end a line and then output name, and then output is teaching a class, okay, and then end the L, end the line, and then output that, and look at what you're going to get. You're going to get a really cool output, because you're getting a name that you declared in this variable, string name, and you in that variable you're declaring it as the name Zach, which is output right here. So you're saying console output my name, which we declared here, Zach, and then immediately after that, don't end the line or anything, output this string that we're declaring as a raw string right here. This isn't in a variable, this is actually, we're just putting this straight into our output stream, is teaching a class, and then end the line.